Today, I'm in the company of Mauro Porcini, Chief Designer Officer at PepsiCo, a world-renowned designer and true innovator in his field. In his position at PepsiCo, he's introducing a new approach to innovation centered on design thinking, which is impacting the company's platform of products. So, to give you a sense, brands like Gatorade, Tropicana, Doritos, Quaker. And it's impacting it both in their physical and virtual expressions, so from packaging to events, advertising, architecture, digital media, fashion, and art collaborations. Mauro leads teams based, among others, in New York City, Dallas, Chicago, Miami, London, Moscow, Cairo, New Delhi, Shanghai, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo. His work has been featured in several books on design and innovation, and his contributions have been recognized by a variety of honors, including the title of Cavaliere dell'Ordine della Stella d'Italia, conferred upon him in 2019 by the President of the Italian Republic. He has been included in prestigious rankings in worldwide magazines, so in the 50 most influential designers by Fast Company, in the 40 under 30 by Fortune, in the 30 best dressed men of 2015 by GQ Italy. We lack 20 here, but lastly we have the 10 Italians that will change the world by the newspaper Il Giornale. Mauro is an alum of the Polytechnic of Milan and so far has been granted 47 patents on his name. And he's on the board of directors of the Design Management Institute, the Italy America Chamber of Commerce, and La Scuola d'Italia in New York City, where he currently lives. It is a real pleasure to have you in this episode of Italian Innovators, so thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
So today we'll talk about Italian design, design as a source of innovation, and design as a form of knowledge. So let me start with a general question. What is design for you?
Well, design for me is about people. It's about understanding their needs, their wants, their dreams that sometimes are articulated, sometimes you need to guess them, you need to imagine them, and then translating those insights into solutions. And it could be a product, it could be a service, it could be a brand, it could be an experience, it could be all of this. So it's really about understanding people and being in love somehow with people and giving them something that they dream of and they desire. Surprise them with that.
Mm-hmm. So what are your models and who inspire you the most in your formation as a designer? So which element of your Italian education was more decisive to your success?
Well, I don't know if I have a one specific model. I think it's a mix of many different things. The Italian education is very humanistic. And I think, philosophy, literature, this attention to human nature and to the fundamental questions of life somehow influence me in many different ways in all my life, both the professional one in the world of design as well and in my private one. Then somehow, what innovation design is in Italy in general, and not just with the latest designers, the latest brands, but if you go all the way back to people like Leonardo da Vinci, for instance. I'm just now reading the biography of Leonardo written by Isaacson. It's just amazing, what that individual was doing at the mix between what today we would call design and entrepreneurship and creativity and innovation. So somehow is the cultural context of Italy that influenced me in what I do today. And then there have been specific individuals. By the way, paradoxically, not even coming from the world of design. One of them is an entrepreneur in the world of show business, a DJ, a musician. His name is Claudio Cecchetto. And what Claudio gave me is that idea that every time you do something, it could be the most simple project in your day-to-day. Every time you do something, you need to innovate. You need to do something that nobody else did before. And I think that's really, if I need to think about a model and a mentor, Claudio for sure is one of those.
Definitely. So There are many cases of international designers who work for Italian companies, which are often run with foreign capital or imported materials from outside Italy. And this is also something that interrogates us on what made in Italy means. In your case, you are an Italian designer who works for a global international company. So what is Italian design then? What makes it Italian, and what does the attribute Italian make to design?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big question, and I don't know if I know the answer because you're right. I mean, there are many, we love as Italians to think of, every time there is an Italian element in the mix, that's Italian design. So it may be an Italian company. We neglect the fact that there are foreign designers, working in the company. That's Italian design. It could be an Italian designer working in an American company or a foreign company, and that's Italian design. So what is Italian design? I think is the mix between the ability to trust your guts and your intuition. We're very emotional in what we do as Italians. Our very well-developed sense of aesthetic. We are surrounded by beauty as we grow up, and this beauty in nature, beauty in architecture, in the style of the people that surround us. And it's not just beauty; it's the density of this beauty and the variety and diversity of this beauty that is driven by the fact that our country is very diverse from a geographical standpoint, as well as from a cultural standpoint, because it's a country since 150 years, more or less, since 1861. We forget often, these little details. So there was this cultural diversity driven by the fact that we were under so many different kinds of domination. So this richness that is translated also in the aesthetic of everything that surrounds us is something very important. When I left Italy and I moved to other countries around the world, I realized that level of beauty was not there in my day-to-day, and I started to suffer of this. I mean, my level of inspiration was going down. And so that's for sure another component of what we do, who we are. Is also an approach to design that somehow is very close to the idea of art, and there is always a social point of view. Even when it's not explicit, even when the designer is not even aware of it, is somehow the history of our design. While the Anglo-Saxon design is very industrial, is strategic, is business-oriented, most of the time Anglo-Saxon designers call the people that design for consumers. When you study design in Italy, you call those people, human beings. Eventually, you call them users. It's more about, the moment that they use. So there is less of a business perspective and more of a social perspective. If you think about architecture and design in the 70s, in the 80s, there was always also an hidden message, social message overlapping, what was happening there. So this is the nature of what we do as designers. I think is also our weakness, because often we are not able to then leverage that approach at scale. And it's the history of Italy, the little medium enterprise, while the Anglo-Saxon approach to design innovation is very strategic, is process-driven, and can be scaled. And so the magic, I think, is when the two worlds mix, and this is what I've been trying to do in the past few years in PepsiCo.
Well, this being said, you also talk about design as a booster of productivity and also a key component in industrial growth. What is design thinking, and why is it so relevant to the success of a company? So in the case of PepsiCo, if you can make some examples.
Yeah, design thinking is a word that has been used and abused in so many different ways. And there is today, our own community of design is divided between people that love these two words and people that hate them and that are challenging them. I think the biggest misunderstanding about design thinking is that design thinking is just a process, and is a magic wand. You're a company, you take this thing called design thinking, you train a few people, and you're going to solve all your problems. You do that, and you realize that is not the case. You fail, and then you blame design thinking because that process didn't work out. And the reality is that design thinking is not about the process. Design thinking is about the thinking part of design. So it's the way of thinking, of working, of behaving, of investigating the world, typical of the design community, the creative community. And I like to synthesize design thinking as the crossroad between empathy, strategy, and prototyping. Empathy is about understanding people, needs and wants, essentially understanding what is relevant to people and to the society in general. Once you understand that, you have that insight, then you need to understand what is relevant to your company. So that's strategy. In 3 dimensions, what is relevant to your company from a business model standpoint. So I realized that, for instance, in beverage, there is an opportunity for premium drinks that are not alcoholic to consume at night. Because I go to clubs and I just see alcoholic drinks, there is an amazing opportunity for that. It's just an example. So that's the insights, something that is relevant to people. But maybe it's not, now I need to understand if it's relevant to my company. And maybe it's not relevant to my company from a business model standpoint, because I don't have the channel of distribution for those kind of products in my company. The second dimension is from a process and capability standpoint. Do I have the manufacturing process to produce premium if my company, for instance, is a mass market company? The third dimension is cultural. Let's say that I don't have the business model, but I can build it. I don't have the manufacturing capability, I can invest in it. Do I have the right culture to take certain kind of decisions at the executive level in my company, take risk on premium, when I don't, it's not my comfort zone. I know how to do business in a certain way. Or do I have the right sales organization to sell dreams and premium experiences when the vast majority of my sales organization has been selling maybe functionality or advertising in a different way for many years? So again, the strategy is about understanding what is relevant to the company. You may find something that is really good for people, but is not exactly what you can do as a company, existing company, or eventually if you need to build a new company. It doesn't mean, by the way, that if you realize that there is an opportunity in society and doesn't fit your company, you shouldn't do it. But it means that your project is not about designing an amazing premium portfolio. Your job is about doing that, and on top of it, redesigning the business model, redesigning your manufacturing process, making it affordable, viable for the company, and so on and so forth. And then there is a third component that is the ability to prototype. If you just stop at empathy and strategy, the business community may tell you, what, we don't need designers to do that. Empathy is, in marketing, we have consumer insights. Consumer research and insights is part of a marketing organization. And strategy, of course we do strategy as a business community, is what we own. So why do we need designers? And designers will tell you, well, but we have a different point of view. We look at people in a different way. We look at the business in a different way. We take different kind of risk. And at the end of the day, as designers, we will always lose that battle because we don't have the credibility to prove that, and we don't have the resources anyway to do it. But there is this third component that change everything, and this is our ability to prototype. And what that really means is that as soon as you have an insight about something and you understand and make sense for your company, you start to create, you start to prototype. It could be a sketch, it could be a mock-up, it could be any a PowerPoint presentation with some visuals. And prototyping is an amazing way to think. A lot of people that think that prototyping is just about visualizing an idea. In reality, prototyping is an enabler of conversations, of thinking with many different kind of values and advantages to really speed up the process, increase efficiency, increase the quality of the ideas, and building confidence inside the organization that the risk you want to take when you innovate is the right thing to do.
So what I find fascinating in what you do is, paradoxically, your bilingualism. And I'm not referring here to just your ability to speak English and Italian, but really the ability to speak business and culture at the same time. So to relate technical innovation to aesthetic creativity, or as in your own upbringing, to synthesize your mother's love for philosophy to your father's love for architecture and drawing. So the ability to speak different languages really implies the gesture of constantly translating different words, of mirroring, connecting, cross-pollinating, and reshaping them. What does your bilingualism have to do with the creation of originality, or in other terms as we use now, influence? And what is influence or originality in your opinion?
Yeah, I think even more than bilingual, being bilingual is really, I call it almost polyglottism, if you can say in English, being polyglots, because it's even more than two. If you think about innovation, is all about looking at something that everybody look at and everybody sees the same things, and then you change perspective, you change point of view, and all of a sudden you see something that nobody saw before. And this is, I think, the magic of talking different languages and trying to look at things in different ways. Is actually the richness and the unbelievable potential of diversity at 360 degrees, diversity of thinking, diversity of feeling. And so I think if innovation and originality is all about creating something, that nobody saw before, the ability to talk different languages, to mix different kind of disciplines, to being comfortable in the gray area and having this very dialectical approach to life is key. And I think, somehow you have it inside yourself. There is something in your DNA that somehow is there. And then is culture and is education, is mentorship, and so the environment you grow up in, the role of your family, of your teachers, and then all the experiences you do in life, all of this is key. But once again, it all starts with yourself, with that ability to be curious, to investigate, to be a fertile field where people will plant seeds, or life actually, even better than people, will plant seeds. And then if you're fertile, if you're open, curious, you are humble enough to listen and confident enough to act, you will be able really to grow, from those seeds, something that is unique. And that's why, by the way, it's not a one-man show or a one-woman show. It's always, a collaborative effort where you open up to the world gives back, and together you can create something that is magic.
So I want to bring you back also to my world, which is the academic world. And I want to give you a definition that comes from my professor at Harvard, Jeffrey Schnapp, who defined the 21st century intellectual as a knowledge designer. You often mention that design, like philosophy, is a work of translation of our understanding of human nature into theoretical constructs or visual frameworks. So if design is a form of knowledge, what do we know when we design something?
Look, we need to try to understand people. As I said earlier, their needs, their wants. So the first form of knowledge is in understanding the reality. And that's why, for me, philosophy and design are so close to each other, because you really need to ask yourself those primary questions and laddering up and really deeply understand what drives people. That's the first form of knowledge. And then we design a flow of communication between a solution, a product, a brand, a service, and people. Every time people interact with a product or a brand, they search three levels of benefits. The first one is the functional one. I buy a car because I need to move from A to B, or I drink a Pepsi because I need to hydrate myself. The second one is what we call the emotional benefit. So I buy something because I really love it. I really love the shape of that dress, or I really love what the Harley Davidson or Prada brand mean to me, just personally. And then there is the third level of benefit, that is what we call the semiotic benefit. So it's what that product or that brand are saying about me to the rest of the world. I drive an Harley Davidson, but all day, during the day, I'm there with my suit and my tie, and I'm a business leader. And then they see me in the weekend, wild with my Harley Davidson. I'm telling the world something. Anything that surrounds us, the clothes we have, the objects that surround us, the house we have, the car we drive, the books we read, the friends we have, everything is telling a story about us to the rest of the world. So as designers, we design these three layers of communication and knowledge, if you want, because you need to deeply understand what that means, the meaning of these three layers, and you see immediately that is a mix between functional benefits and emotional benefits. And aesthetic and beauty, that is just one component of design, is an extremely important component of that kind of connection and communication and dialogue. I think it was Aristotle, I may be wrong, but Aristotle was talking of aesthetic, was defining aesthetic, and once again, by the way, is the etymology of the word, as what is perceived by the five senses. So we often refer to aesthetic as what we look at, the visual cues of an object. The reality is that aesthetic is also the sound of that object, is the touch of that object. And you understand this immediately because when you look at something, you already have implicitly an expectation of the weight of the product or the sound of the product. Imagine when you look at the car of a Fiat Panda, the old Fiat Panda, and then you look at the door of the Fiat Panda, and then you look at the door of a beautiful BMW or a Ferrari. You immediately expect a different weight, a different sound when you close the door, or the same when you have a Mont Blanc pen and you have a cheap, pen in your hands, and the weight that you expect is different. The touch, the coldness of the material, the warmth of the material. Plastic has a different kind of temperature to the touch than metal. So all of this define the quality of what you have in front of you. The aesthetic at 360 degrees define the quality, and is somehow, going back again to Aristotle, is a gate to access real knowledge, the most profound knowledge about everything. So it's paradoxically something that we often define as something superficial, something that is not that important, is amazing in giving us access to real profound knowledge. And aesthetic, by the way, combined with purpose, beauty combined with purpose, can be used in an amazing way to push people to do good things. Unfortunately, beauty combined with bad purpose in the past has been used in many bad ways as well.
Also, the word design contains the word sign, meaning endowing things with meaning. You use the word semiotics. It's really the ability to create meaning out of an object. And, so in this sense, an object is kind of a book that speaks and creates meaning. A last question about a common passion, shoes and watches. They're both like cereal and luxury items. In your opinion, what makes unique a shoe or a watch?
Well, I'll give you two answers, and I'm thinking about them while I'm talking. So the first one is that what makes that unique is you. Is you, meaning that if it's unique to you, because somehow you give to that object, could be a watch, could be a shoe, a specific meaning, then that object become unique. And somehow, you refer earlier to design as books. I think design is like poetry somehow. You create something as a designer or as a poet, and that thing is one. But then in the interpretation of the people that use it and enjoy it become thousands. One of my favorite books ever is Uno Nessuno Centomila of Pirandello. One, what is it? I'm going to translate it in English. 100,000.
No one.
No one. Of Pirandello, this idea that you are one unique individual, and then in the interpretation of all the people surround you, you become so many more, 100,000, and then essentially you lose yourself because you don't know anymore who you are for real. It's somehow magic. And again, when you design something or you create a book or you write a poem, I think it's somehow, similar. In a positive way, I have a positive angle, less pessimistic than Pirandello. Maybe I remove the no one. You put all yourself inside the shoe or the watch, but then really what makes the shoe and the watch really unique is the interpretation of the people using it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for the conversation tonight. We talked about design and innovation and design and knowledge, and design really has a language to endow things with meaning. Thanks again for the conversation today, and thanks everybody for listening. And you can find all the other episodes of the podcast on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, or at the official webpage at www.italianinnovators.com. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Luca Cottini or ITA Innovators. Grazie ancora, arrivederci e alla prossima.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.